And well, in light of the Daniel Bryan situation, the other thing I wanted to touch up on is the Hell in a Cell, not the pay per view entirely, the Hell in a Cell itself. I don't know if this is. I guess this could be qualified as nitpicking, or it could be qualified as just stupid complaining. But since the Hell in a Cell is my favorite kind of match, and I've seen every single Hell in a Cell match that there is to see that was on television, I just find that the Hell in a Cell has. It's not even close to what it should be. The Hell in a Cell was originally constructed to keep everyone from getting out and keep people from getting in, and it was also to settle scores, to settle rivalries. I mean, if you look at the best Hell in a Cell matches ever, Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, Triple H and Batista was brutal, Triple H and Cactus Jack, The Undertaker, Randy Orton, The Undertaker and Edge, The Undertaker and Triple H. The Hell in a Cell structure is supposed to end rivalries. It is supposed to settle scores. To where these two guys, or whatever the case may be, whatever the rivalry is, that it's gotten to the point where they hate each other's guts. They have destroyed each other on a number of occasions, and now they got to get locked into this giant ass cage with no way out to settle the score once and for all. But ever since Hell in a Cell 2010, Hell in a Cell really hasn't meant anything. The only Hell in a Cell match to me that has meant anything since 2010 is the End of an Era match. Because at least it fit. And I'm not trying to be an extremist or sound like an Attitude Era, someone that can't let it go. The Hell in a Cell match is supposed to be brutal. That's why Hell in a Cell is called Hell in a Cell. It's supposed to be sold as the most brutal match that WWE can do. It is supposed to be known as the one match that will settle scores, settle rivalries, where the better man will win, and that's that. Even if it's not the good guy that wins. Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker, I get. It was not a very long rivalry. But it did escalate to the point where the Hell in a Cell became necessary. And we got a definitive winner out of it. And it's one of my favorite matches, even though The Undertaker lost that match. Same thing with Batista and Triple H. The rivalry was not that long. But it got to the point where you needed to be in Hell in a Cell, and it was one-on-one. Ric Flair did not even play a part in that match. Nor should he have. And to add to it, even if someone else does get involved, the heel is not supposed to come out on top. Look at The Undertaker and Randy Orton. The Undertaker and Randy Orton had a rivalry from WrestleMania 21. So you're talking from March/April, going into December of that same year. That's a rivalry that needed a score settle. The Undertaker was put into a casket lit on fire. He was put on the back of a lowrider and rammed into the set of SmackDown. They were jumping each other. They were attacking each other. The Undertaker was playing mind games with Orton. Ended in Hell in a Cell. And The Undertaker prevailed. The one Hell in a Cell match before it started to become crappy that I felt that they made the biggest mistake was with The Undertaker and Batista. Where I felt that Edge kind of took a crap on the match by interfering. Obviously, it wasn't his choice. That's what the storyline depicted for him to do. But I felt The Undertaker and Batista was a great Hell in a Cell match up until the finish. Even if Batista would have put The Undertaker away, I would have been okay with it. But Edge kind of took away from the match. Same thing with The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. Even though it doesn't take away as much because the match was so good, Kane kind of snuck in there and, cost Undertaker the victory. But come on. The Undertaker versus CM Punk, Randy Orton and Mark Henry, come on. And the Hell in a Cell matches, they're not even brutal anymore. They're not even brutal anymore. And I'm sorry, but Hell in a Cell's supposed to be brutal. I'm not saying they got to get thrown off cages. I'm not saying break out barbed wire. But come on. It's Hell in a Cell. It's supposed to be brutal. It's supposed to be impactful. Name me a Hell in a Cell match other than End of an Era, because of the two guys that were in there, that was impactful, and it was vicious, and it was brutal. And there was a definitive winner. You can't. There hasn't been a Hell in a Cell match since, and I'm talking consistently, where the Hell in a Cell matches were always brutal. Since The Undertaker and Edge from SummerSlam 2008, that the Hell in a Cell matches were brutal. The Undertaker and Triple H, they're on a completely different scale than everyone else on the roster as far as brutality. And it's believable. We had 2 Hell in a Cell matches this past pay-per-view. Did the cell really come into play that much during the matches? No. They were generic matches with a cage around it. There was no ominous feeling about the cage coming down. Not to me, anyway. Because the Hell in a Cell matches are no longer brutal. And I'm sorry, but no blood in the Hell in a Cell match makes no sense. Hell in a Cell matches are supposed to be brutal. They're supposed to be violent. And that's where you're supposed to throw down. That's where I stand with Hell in a Cell. I don't think that Hell in a Cell has lived up to that. And it's because of the WWE handcuffs. I'm sorry. I don't care. Hell in a Cell matches are supposed to live up to a certain standard of brutality. Otherwise, why even have the match? And it doesn't settle long-time rivalries because they still continue afterwards. So it makes no sense. But getting into the last subject that I wanted to get into, the WWE Hall of Fame. There are a few names, well actually this has been going on for a few days, I've been discussing with some people that I'm close to about the WWE Hall of Fame and some names that I think should be added to that elite list. Here's one of them, Macho Man Randy Savage. How is he not in the Hall of Fame? Someone explain to me why the Macho Man has not been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Makes no damn sense. Macho Man was just as big as everyone else on that list right there of the 80s. Macho was great. Macho was great. There's no question about it. Another name that it's obvious why he's not in, because his wife, doesn't want him to even be involved in the word wrestling anymore, is Owen Hart. Owen Hart was a great talent. It was terrible how his demise took place. I had the privilege of meeting Owen Hart a year before his passing. Very good guy. I'd love nothing more than to see him get inducted. The British Bulldogs, both of them, Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith, both should be in the Hall of Fame. The British Bulldogs were a great team. To this day, I still see people in their 40s and 50s saying, "Oh, I love the British Bulldogs. They were great." They were a very good tag team. And Davey Boy was great during his singles run. You're going to go by managers. Jim Cornette. How the hell is Jim Cornette not in the Hall of Fame? He managed the Midnight Express, Yokozuna, Owen Hart, Davey Boy Smith. Jim Cornette was just a natural villain. He just was, and he was a good manager. I had someone ask me yesterday, how come he walked around with a tennis racket? And I just stood there and said, nobody else ever did, and he made it work. I think in anyone else's hands, that tennis racket don't mean dick. Another name that I believe belongs in the Hall of Fame is Jake the Snake Roberts. How's he not in the Hall of Fame? The innovator of the DDT. Heard whispers that he's going to try to get into the Rumble, but, one can only hope. I guess he got his life right thanks to Diamond Dallas Page, who's another name that I think belongs in the Hall of Fame. And what about Jake Roberts' best counterpart, Ravishing Rick Rude? How's he not in the Hall of Fame? Rick Rude was to me the best villain in the 80s. Right next to Flair, if you're going to talk about greatness. I thought Ravishing Rick Rude was great. I thought he could have been a great heel WWE champion. But unfortunately, with Hogan on top, no one else is going to get the title. And even if they did get the title, they wouldn't be the focal point. You don't believe me? Ex-Macho. TNA names that I believe belong in the Hall of Fame. The Dudleys. Team 3D. Best tag team of this era. The Attitude Era, I mean. I'm sorry, not this era, because this era is long past. The Dudleys haven't been a team in a while. I'm not counting aces and 0.8s. Fuck that shit. That was just, it died a slow, miserable death. And I'm so glad that I didn't waste my time watching Impact the last few months. Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's probably the best freestyle wrestler I've ever seen. He's Kurt Angle. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. He's been a great champion. He's an Olympic gold medalist. Can't say enough about him. The three promoters, Bischoff, Heyman, and Vince McMahon, not Russo. Vince McMahon. All three of them should go in the Hall of Fame because without them, the business would not be what it is. And the last name I'd like to mention is Sting. He ever leaves TNA and comes to the WWE, I'm hoping two things happen. He fights The Undertaker and gets in the Hall of Fame. I know the match won't be that good, but I still want to see it because that's the little kid in me. I always wanted to see my two favorites clash. And I would love nothing more than to see Sting get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Um, I'm hearing whispers that Warrior might get put in with his new involvement in the WWE with the video game. You're going to go by character. Warrior was a great character. Was he a great worker? Absolutely not. But he was a character that people to this day still talk about and they still remember it, and that deserves to be recognized. I'll give him that. Well, that just about wraps it up for me for now. And we got Survivor Series coming up, and I'm looking forward to seeing how things play out. Hopefully, they play out even more interesting than they have been. I hope everyone enjoyed their Halloween, and I'll catch you guys after Survivor Series.